The ocean has always kept its secrets, holding them in the crushing, silent dark, far from the prying eyes of the sun. We sail upon its surface, unaware of the lost worlds that sleep beneath the waves, of empires that vanished not into dust, but into the deep. This is not a story of myth, not the fiction of Atlantis, but the true, buried history of a kingdom whose name was erased by the sea, a civilization whose discovery rewrote everything we thought we knew about our past. It begins not with a map, but with a whisper, a ghost echo on a sonar screen in the storm-racked waters off the coast of a forgotten archipelago. Dr. Aris Thorne, a marine archaeologist whose reputation for chasing legends had cost him more grants than he could count, stood on the swaying deck of the research vessel Odysseus, his knuckles white as he gripped the railing. The wind howled around him, whipping salt spray into his face. For 20 years, he had been obsessed with the Lamentera Deeps, a patch of ocean notorious waves and magnetic anomalies. Ancient mariners' logs, dismissed as superstitious ramblings, spoke of a city of bells that would toll a warning before great storms, the sound rising from the very depths. His colleagues called it a fool's errand. But Eris, a man haunted by the ghosts of lost things, believed. Another ghost Eris, called Lena Petrova, the team's geophysicist, her voice barely audible over the gale. The storm's getting worse. The captain wants to pull the gear and run. One more pass, Lena. Eris shouted back, his eyes fixed on the monitor in the ship's lab. The multi-beam is painting a picture. There's something down there. Something angular. Lena ducked inside, wiping salt water from her brow. On the screen the seafloor was a chaotic jumble of canyons and ridges. But there in the center was a series of unmistakable, straight lines and perfect circles. It could be a geological formation, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. The basalt in this region can fracture in strange ways. Not like this, Aris murmured, zooming in. Nature doesn't build in right angles. And it certainly doesn't build that. He pointed to a massive, circular structure, easily half a mile in diameter, from which a series of smaller, concentric rings emanated. It looked like a target, or the foundation of a colossal tower. That's not a rock. That's a footprint. That footprint belonged to the kingdom of Thalassar. To understand the magnitude of its burial, we must first understand the height from which it fell. Over 3,000 years ago, while the Bronze Age empires of the Mediterranean were rising, Thalassar was the undisputed master of the ocean. They were not a warlike people who conquered by sword, but a mercantile and scientific civilization that built its empire upon a profound understanding of the sea. Their homeland was not a single island, but a vast, sheltered archipelago known as the Cradle of Luminera, protected by a ring of volcanic mountains. The Thalassarians were master hydrologists and architects. They built their cities not just on the land, but with it, channeling freshwater from the mountains through a network of aqueducts and canals so advanced they would not be rivaled for millennia. Their capital, Aquaria, was known as the City of 1,000 Bridges, a metropolis of white marble and blue-veined porphyry that glittered under the sun, its canals bustling with sleek, silent boats powered by a mysterious technology that harnessed geothermal vents. We know this not from guesswork, but from the translated fragments of the sapphire codices, records etched onto indestructible crystalline plates recovered from the ruins. The codices speak of a society governed by a council of wave-singers, individuals who could interpret the complex language of the ocean currents, predicting weather and guiding their fleets of trade ships to the far corners of the world. They traded not in common goods, but in knowledge, in medicines distilled from deep sea flora, and in a unique form of luminous pearl that could hold a charge of light for a century. A Thalassarian navigator's line, found preserved in a deep sea silt bed, reads, "The sea does not separate us, it connects. Its currents are our roads, its abysses our libraries." But the greatest of Thalassar's secrets, the one that would ultimately lead to its doom, was the geocore. According to the codices, the Thalassarians had discovered that the geothermal energy of their volcanic archipelago was interconnected, a single, pulsing network of power deep within the Earth's crust. In the heart of Aquaria, they constructed the geocore, a massive stabilizing engine designed to regulate this energy, to prevent the volcanoes from erupting, and to temper the earthquakes that occasionally shook their world. It was a masterpiece of geoengineering, a machine that kept the very earth beneath their feet in a state of perfect, peaceful equilibrium. It was their pride, and their greatest vulnerability. For centuries, Thalassar flourished in its golden isolation. Their influence was subtle. An Egyptian pharaoh's tomb might contain a dagger made of a strange, uncorroding metal. A Minoan fresco might depict a ship of unfamiliar, elegant design. They were the ghost in the machine of the ancient world, a whisper of a greater, hidden power. But all golden ages must end. The turning point began not with a bang, but with a tremor. The sapphire codices record a series of deep shudders that the wave singers could not explain. The geocore began to behave erratically, its central crystal, a gem the size of a man, the known as the heart of the abyss, pulsing with an unstable, frantic light. The ruling council was divided. The chief engineer, a man named Heracleion, warned of a catastrophic failure. He believed the geocore was being stressed by a shifting tectonic plate, a force of nature too vast for their technology to contain. The core was built to soothe a sleeping giant. He is recorded as saying in one poignant fragment, "But the giant is awakening, and our lullaby is no longer enough. We must dampen the core's output, or it will amplify the coming cataclysm." But the high-wave singer, an old and proud woman named Lyra, refused. She saw the geocore as the soul of Thalasar, a symbol of their mastery over nature. To reduce its power was an admission of defeat, a step back into the darkness. "We are Thalasarians," she proclaimed. "The ocean obeys our will. The earth heeds our song. We will not cower. We will reinforce the core. We will command the giant to sleep once more." It was a fatal miscalculation. Heracleion, foreseeing the doom, began a secret project. He and a loyal group of engineers and scholars worked frantically to create archives, the very sapphire codices, and to seal them in deep, pressure-resistant vaults built into the bedrock of the continental shelf. They knew Aquaria was doomed, but they were determined that the knowledge of Thalasar would not perish with it. The cataclysm arrived on a day the codices call the sunless morning. The sky turned the color of bruised metal. The sea, usually a placid blue, became a churning black. The geocore, pushed beyond its limits by Lyra's reinforcements, could no longer stabilize the building pressure. Instead of containing the energy, it focused it, acting like a lens. A massive magma chamber, building pressure for a millennium, finally found its release. The volcanic ring that protected the cradle of Lunera erupted not in sequence, but in a single, simultaneous, apocalyptic detonation. The sound must have been unimaginable, a roar that shook the world. The earth shattered. The very seabed upon which Aquaria was built fractured. Then came the water. The initial eruptions triggered a tsunami hundreds of feet high, but that was only the prelude. The true horror was the subsidence. The destabilized crust beneath the archipelago simply collapsed, a continental sinkhole on a scale never before witnessed by humanity. Over the course of a single, terrifying day, the entire cradle of Luminera, the jewel of the ancient world, was pulled downward into the abyss. The sea rushed in to fill the void, swallowing cities, mountains, and millions of lives in a relentless, churning torrent. The empire of Thalasar was not washed away, it was buried alive under a mile of cold, dark water. Back aboard the Odysseus, the storm had abated, leaving behind a heaving, gray sea. The initial sonar images had been compelling enough to launch a remotely operated vehicle, the Proteus. Eris, Lena, and the entire crew were crowded around the monitors, the only sound the hum of the Proteus's tether and the frantic beating of their own hearts. The Ravi descended through the murky water, its lights piercing the eternal night. Fish, evolved for the darkness, scattered at the unaccustomed invasion. Depth, 1,200 meters, Lena reported, her voice tense. "We should be seeing the seafloor now." The camera view cleared. It was not the soft, silty bottom they expected. It was a paved road, its stones still neatly fitted, running between what were unmistakably the foundations of buildings. The Proteus drifted forward, its lights illuminating a nightmare tableau of frozen time. A wide plaza, its centerpiece a shattered fountain carved in the shape of a coiled sea serpent. The rusted, coral-encrusted remains of a metal gate, its design fluid and organic, unlike any known ancient style. And everywhere, the haunting, perfect silence. "My God," Eris whispered, his breath catching. "It's real. It's all real." They guided the Proteus through the drowned streets, a ghost ship touring a ghost city. They found homes with pottery still sitting on ledges, workshops with tools laid out as if the craftsman had just stepped away. The preservation was staggering, the cold, anoxic water acting as a perfect preservative. Then, they found the first skeleton. It was curled in the corner of the small structure, perhaps a shop. It was not a pose of terror, but of resignation, as if the owner had simply sat down to wait for the end they knew was coming. "This is overwhelming," Lena said, her scientific detachment crumbling. This wasn't a sudden mudslide, the water rose. They had time to know they were doomed. The Proteus continued its solemn journey, moving toward the large circular structure they had seen from the surface. As it approached, the scale became apparent. It was a ziggurat. But unlike any other, tiered like a wedding cake, with ramps instead of stairs spiraling around its circumference. And at its peak, they found it. A chamber, its roof long collapsed, containing the ruins of a massive machine. Crystalline shards, some as tall as a person, lay scattered amidst conduits of a strange, greenish alloy that showed no sign of corrosion. The geocore, Eris said, his voice filled with awe. This is it. The stories were true. But the greatest mystery was yet to be revealed. As the Proteus's lights played over the ruins of the machine, they noticed something odd. One section of the floor, made of a different, darker material, was perfectly intact. Using the ROV's manipulator arm, they carefully brushed away the centuries of sediment. Beneath was a pattern, a series of concentric circles with a single arrow-like protrusion pointing towards the heart of the city. It's a marker, Lena said, frowning. But for what? Following the direction of the arrow, they piloted the Proteus away from the ziggurat, towards a cliff face at the edge of the city. There, partially obscured by a landslide, was a doorway. It was not a natural cave formation. It was carved with the same fluid, elegant lines as the rest of Thalassarian architecture, and sealed with a massive stone slab. Etched into the center of the slab was a symbol, a spiral, representing the geocore, bisected by a single straight line, the universal symbol for stop, or contain. It's a vault. Aris breathed. Kalen's vault. The codices said he built archives. This must be one of them. The mystery of Thalassar, therefore, is not just how it fell, but what it knew. The sapphire codices recovered from this and other vaults have provided staggering insights. But they have also posed questions that shake the foundations of history and science. The Thalassarians possessed a knowledge of astronomy that was frighteningly precise. They mapped celestial bodies invisible to the naked eye and understood the precession of the equinoxes with an accuracy that would not be matched until the Renaissance. Their medicine, derived from deep sea organisms, included treatments that resemble modern antibiotics and even complex surgical procedures. But the most profound and unsettling mystery concerns the true purpose of the geocore. Some translated passages suggest it was not merely a geological stabilizer. They speak of it as a conduit for the world's voice, a receiver of the great song. A fringe theory, championed by a few daring researchers, posits that the geocore was an attempt to tap into the planet's own magnetic resonance, a global energy field. The Thalassarians may not have been trying to trawl the Earth's geology, but its very energy, to draw power from the core itself. This would explain the catastrophic feedback loop that destroyed them. They weren't just fighting a volcano, they were fighting a planet. Were they visionary pioneers? Or arrogant fools who tampered with forces they could not hope to understand? The codices are deliberately vague on this point, as if the knowledge was considered too dangerous to be fully detailed. Furthermore, the distribution of Thalassarian artifacts, a peculiar type of blue glass in Scandinavia, a specific nautical knot depicted in Mesoamerican art, suggests their influence was far wider than ever imagined. Did they circumnavigate the globe? Did they seed knowledge in nascent cultures, acting as the silent god-parents of human civilization? The evidence is tantalizing, but inconclusive. The deepest mystery of Thalassar is that its discovery has not closed a chapter in history, but has instead opened a dozen new ones, each more bewildering than the last. The story of Thalassar is more than a tale of a lost city. It is a profound and permanent lesson etched into the bedrock of the ocean. It is a story of hubris, of the peril that comes when we believe our technology has elevated us above the fundamental forces of nature. The Thalassarians were the most advanced civilization of their age, perhaps of any age. They bent the sea to their will, they built a machine to quiet the earth's tremors, and in their unparalleled brilliance, they forged the instrument of their own destruction. But their story is also one of hope and resilience. In their final days, faced with an inescapable doom, they did not succumb to chaos. Kalen and his followers, recognizing their failure, dedicated their last breaths to preserving their knowledge, to sending a message across the gulf of time. They ensured that their story would be told, that their achievements would not be utterly lost, and that their ultimate failure would serve as a warning. As the lights of the Proteus played over the sealed vault door, Aris Thorn felt the weight of that warning. He was not just looking in a ruin, he was looking in a mirror. In an age where we debate geoengineering to reverse climate change, where we harness the power of the atom and manipulate the building blocks of life, the fall of Thalassar is a chilling allegory. We too dance with giants. We, too, believe our lullabies are powerful enough to make them sleep. The hidden kingdom buried under the sea is a silent, sunless sentinel. Its drowned towers and silent streets are a monument to human ingenuity, and to its limits. The bells of Aquaria no longer toll, but their silence is the most deafening sound of all. It is a reminder that the greatest civilizations are not always those that leave the grandest monuments upon the land, but those whose fall teaches the living how to survive. The ocean kept the secret of Thalassar for 3,000 years, not to hide it from us, but to preserve it until we were ready to understand its message. And as we now look upon our own world, with its rising seas and shifting climates, we must ask ourselves, are we listening?